Why was this 28-year-old woman executed? And why did her case shock Britain? On the morning of the 13th of July 1955, crowds gathered outside HM Prison Holloway in London. Some prayed, others stood in stunned silence. Inside the prison gates, Ruth Ellis, a 28-year-old mother of two, took communion and a final sip of brandy. That morning, she became the last woman to be hanged in Britain. Her execution sent shockwaves through the nation. Ellis had been convicted in April 1955 of shooting her boyfriend, David Blakely. During the trial, Blakely was proven to have been abusive. Ellis's violent crime was widely characterised as a compulsive act of desperation, carried out after she had suffered months of violence at his hands. Although murderers commonly faced the death penalty at the time, women were rarely executed in Britain. In fact, 90% of the women sentenced to death in the 20th century were reprieved. But as Professor Lizzie explained in an article for BBC History magazine, the law didn't recognise Ellis's experiences of emotional and physical abuse as relevant to her defence. Ellis had also been romantically involved with another man, Desmond Cusson, who fatefully had given her a gun, which complicated the picture. Plus, there was the fact that Ellis and Blakely were in a relationship but not married. And there was the perceived premeditated nature of Blakely's killing. These all counted against her. As Seal put it, failure to meet standards of conventional morality in relation to marriage and monogamy proved fatal for Ruth Ellis. Her sentence was death. But as the press made clear, the justice system's unforgiving interpretation of Blakely's murder proved hugely out of step with public opinion. Thousands signed petitions and wrote letters about how they identified with all that Ellis had suffered. Flowers were delivered to the prison, and newspapers pleaded for mercy. Politicians debated her fate. But ultimately, she was refused a reprieve. Ruth Ellis's death supercharged the debate around capital punishment that by 1955 was already firmly in the national consciousness. 10 years later, in 1965, capital punishment for murder was abolished. You can read the full article by Professor Seal and hear a podcast with Gillian Patcher about Ellis's case and sentence and the debate it caused in British society at historyextra.com.